Hello and welcome to Geekatplay Studio. Overview of the Terragen and Vue 11.5. I received a lot of requests about asking what is different between these two applications, between Terragen 3 and currently what we're going to look on Vue 11.5, and I will also touch Vue 12, some small additions and what's different. First off, I want to say I don't go have a review to show you must have this application or another ones. I want to show you pluses and minuses of each applications and help you decide what tool is best will work for you where on specific project. Personally, I still use both applications on a daily basis. It's based mostly on the project. For me, Vue or the Terragen, it's just a tool that help to achieve specific look or specific function I'm looking for my project. So depend which tool is fit better, I use this. So let's look right now on some of them, on the pluses and minuses of applications. We'll start with a Vue 11.5 and I will jump between them and look on both. So first off, we'll compare when you started, you look on a difference in UI. Vue UI is look much more sleek, polished, and a little bit more defined. As an artist, I find out with a Vue interface, it's easy to start working. However, the Terragen provide a lot of nice options in the interface that after work with some time I found that more beneficial for me to do that. For example, you notice right here you have it only one screen and you have it also node screen and other ones. It seems like hard because you maybe want to see different views. What you can do, you always can go to create a new windows, which is actually very useful, and you can always open them in new locations. For example, right here I have different window open of the preview. I can modify and change inside the preview look on different points, and when I modify terrain inside, the both will be synchronizing. So in this case, I can actually create multiple windows, and I use it 3 monitor setup, move on my different screen, set up different type of the windows I wanted with a different angles, perspective, up or around, and work this way. This also work for the preview window if you need it, almost for any other ones kind of navigational. So it does help, and if you're customizing and you set up properly your UI, overall you can achieve more information, easier access inside the Terragen 3 versus the Vue. And again, if we go back to Vue and look, right here we have our side views. We can readjust them. Same, we can maximize, minimize specific views, but overall you cannot currently move them away from the screen or readjust and have a bigger view or otherwise. Access to some functionality, for example, in the Terragen, you can see right here we have our node view, just maybe maximizing and otherwise. You can similarity, we can say it will be probably function editor, some edit inside the Vue, and that is could access by the okay, let me go create some object. Okay, and terrain, just throw some couple around. So you can notice we can access some function editor and not editor in separate windows, and the same way we can move this to different window, a different monitor preview, so you can still organize some access inside the Vue when you're working. Instead, except how I say this main our views panels, the kind of lock. So overall, I'll say, yeah, let me close this window. Okay. Depend on what you're working and how you're accessing. Also, the different you will notice preview and the Terragen, you have it in main screen preview. In the Vue, you also have this preview, but only a little bit smaller. Again, you can modify and readjust this windows a little bit so you can have preview. Speaking about preview window and UI, I found out that in many cases actually Vue represent a little bit more accurate with the lightings and effect than Terragen inside, because when you start work with atmosphere and some lighting, sometimes coloring or some other effect does not represent very accurate. So I need to go inside and run render on that preview so I can see how accurate colors are. Okay, about UI, next thing, let's look on all these views. Again, I work with Vue applications from version 4 for some time. Also create over 1,000 tutorials, write books, so I kind of familiar, I hope, with the Vue a little bit, and same work for a long time with interfaces, make familiar. So maybe some judgments cannot be total correct. It's due to some experience. However, I did find that inside the Vue I can easier select objects or access them than inside the Terragen. If you created any new objects inside the Terragen, okay, for example, sometimes it's hard to access them, and even you select this maybe object inside the node view or inside the object browser, they're still not yet selected inside your main view. And I wish Terragen did provide some that ability. For example, if you select here, press space bar and it synchronizes all view on selected objects, or some other way to synchronize with selecting. You can still go and select the object from drop down menu, from context menu this way. But how I say, it is a little bit selection and management done a little bit more convenience inside the Vue application. Okay, how I say, it's hard to say which UI is better. Overall, Vue was polished during many years, and it was well adjusted, added, and was working on the feedback from customers. And Terragen, it's only version 3, so it's new one, but it's already, how I say, in some cases I compare these two applications more like a Windows maybe and Linux, whereas Vue is a Windows a little bit more polished and a Linux a little bit more rough, but it's more customizable and a little bit more adjustable, and you can actually access some functionality a little bit more than other application. Okay, next, inside the Vue we also have additional options, and this is actually sculpting. So the Vue provide nicer tool when you work with the object and you actually work with the terrain. So you can create a truly 3D sculpting. What I mean by real 3D, you can notice right here we actually can grow one object over another ones, like right here. If you work with the applications inside the Terragen, you cannot do this directly with the mesh of the object. You need to use it displacements to achieve same effect. So I'll show you in a second what you can do, because with displacement you can overhang and do other stuff, but by naturally you cannot. But in another case, you perform this with a terrain editor, and you can import some high field maps or other things, and the Terragen actually handle them a little bit better with better details than Vue. And with Vue, if we want to increase details on a high field terrain, you need increase amount of polygon used, which is actually bring quite a bit large mesh, and overall performance of application degraded a little bit faster than you wanted. With it inside the Terragen, it's done much smoother, better, and can handle a little bit more natural and higher details with even high field terrain that maybe you created or imported from DAM or some other applications. Till we're speaking about terrains, the other things also you may notice, if you right here you can see how it's a little bit slowed down now. I kind of take a little bit time for the view to respond on this. So let's say also how the terrain interact. For example, inside the view you have it procedural, you have it high field, and you also have it the infinity terrains, which is procedural. And right here, one thing what I find out, some terrains, they do not, how they work like two objects. You can see right here we have a line going between them. So if we're going inside the Terragen and we'll add any high field, it will integrate it much smoother inside without actually creating any lines. And the reason how the application works, because it will take it terrain and it will merge with the fractals even when you put it high field terrain. So right here example, and till I'm here you also notice Terragen support Terragen format, which is much easy import for the high field and more accurate. But let's just for this, well, I'm going to use it map. Okay, right here I'll just select high fields and map, open. Okay, we can load it, and we can also just slightly apply displacement, and you can notice right here the edges. Okay, so we can come just a little bit closer to preview this specific edge, so we can kind of create border closer. But right here edge, it's much nicer integrated with terrain. And the reason why it's performed better, because Terragen utilize different type of the shading and shaders, how it's placed on terrains. You'll notice that as a shaders right here, we also have specific shaders that can overlay everything, and we'll look on this a little bit later. Overall, right now it's just we'll look on terrains, some UI. Other options when we speak in UI, you notice right here I have position of my mouse. I found this is very useful, and I wish Vue have that. This is allowed when I move around my mouse, it shows me my slope, altitude, and position currently on the screen. So when I start placing something, I can very easy go inside and positioning on same things. Speaking about mouse to moving and navigations, I find out that Terragen does provide a little bit closer on initial setup to key manipulation and key mapping, and you can always access by going help and preview mouse in keyboard settings right here. However, Vue have it little bit an initial on default, have it a little bit their own way to process this, but any times when you go to options, you can actually change and preload it interface to specific to your applications. So in this case, you can work with all these different applications, which is make much more familiar. And of course, this is due because on the first case, the Vue currently version is extreme, can integrate it with a Lightwave, Maya, Cinema 4D, and 3D Max application, so you can launch from inside the kind of integrating into, and Terragen does not do this. So this is an option with colors, mouse, and keyboard mapping. It's kind of useful because if you work with multiple applications, you can adjust what you feel familiar as well. And as other navigation, you know, so right here we have a different type of the gadget, and the Gizmo tool I found a little bit better responsive and nicer, easy work inside the Vue than inside the Terragen. So Terragen have a Gizmo tool on a screen little bit not as nicer, not as defined. However, Terragen provide you a pop-up gizmo tools where you can tweak a little bit better, and this is I find actually work very nice, and it's provide a lot of touch ups. So this is kind of plus for them versus kind of not versus but different from the view, and provide a little bit better defined but overall gizmo tool that you may have it on object you select, and you can see sometimes so it's a little bit harder. So same as selecting objects right here from inside, it's a little bit different kind of. Okay, let's go ahead over next. I mentioned about integrations, the difference between its strong point of the Vue as well. Vue have it on personal. Again, this is based on my personal experience. I think the Vue provide little bit nicer access to the library of the shaders, atmospheres preset, and they do in a Terragen 3 was introducing the library, so you can go through the presets inside the library, kind of similar way. You can apply it based on the shaders and other things you may create it. However, in Vue it's done a little bit different way, so you can go inside the atmosphere editor or preloaded new atmospheres if you need it, or any other material, so you can preview. It's a little bit more separated, so more kind of on a function work. The reason is also why, because in a Terragen, okay, let's go right here, open. It's a different principle how it's accessing. In some cases, you can have a different type of the shaders, and node can apply as a shader or maybe as displacement for the shape of the terrain. So the nodes can work in multiple ways, and that is the reason why in Terragen it's different approach on that. In many cases, I cannot say which one is better. It's more based on what you come used to and which way you like to work and use it, because shaders access and other ones, it's more closer to maybe applications like Maya or Max inside the Terragen, and in Vue it's more closer to the applications if you work with maybe Poser or some other ones. A little bit different type approach to the idea, and it's mostly will be wherever you feel more familiar to working with. And again, this new library was added in a version Terragen 3, and I'm sure it's probably will be redefined as more feedback was placed from the artists who using applications, so they can create a little bit even polish and define a little bit better. So again, one thing, and keep it in mind, as I said before, Vue is currently version 12 and Terragen only version 3, so they have it nice start up and going, but overall at this moment we look at plus and minus of both of those applications. And about content, you'll notice we have some libraries, and Terragen does provide. Again, Terragen, another big plus inside the Vue, that it's have their own a lot of content. They have Cornucopia 3D store where you can download a lot of presets. They also a lot of different artists supply with materials, with shaders. How I said before, I have over 1,000 tutorials just for the Vue, so you have a lot of content that already created for the Vue during the years. And Terragen, it's relatively newer application that just starting, and it's had a very active community which is creating more stuff. But again, that is another plus for the Vue, that have it already pre-built content and educational materials. But again, if you check the geekatplay.com, I have tutorials for the Terragen as well, and it's more coming. So hopefully it will provide necessary educational material for those people who are interested to use Terragen as well. Okay, so let's look on another part of tutorial. We can continue kind of overlook and look on some small difference between these two applications.